Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nikky Lyle Creative Presents with Industry Leaders, where today I'm joined by Vikki Ross. So Vikki's been writing copy for major global brands for 24 years, and she specialises in branding and tone of voice and travels the world telling businesses how to talk. Welcome this morning, Vikki. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. Obviously, I'm not travelling the world at the moment.
Not at the moment.
Can I turn this on its head and just thank you, because you work so hard at extracurricular stuff, like you go above and beyond your job. I can see how hard you're working to clearly try and help as many people as you can. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. That's really cool. It is just a natural thing that I thought to do whilst it's quiet out there on the recruitment side, talking to people that I know such as yourself and nagging you to join me on Zoom and join in on these talks. So thank you. First question I've got for you is that standard. Did you have a light bulb moment when you decided you wanted to be a copywriter? Or is it something you just fell into?
No, I didn't have a light bulb moment. I didn't know what a copywriter was. I knew that I wanted to be a writer because I loved reading and writing. And so when I was a kid, I made up stories. I thought I was going to write a book. When I was at college, when I bothered to turn up, I wrote a magazine. And I loved reading magazines, so I thought that the writing that I liked in the magazines, in the adverts, was journalism. And then through trial and error of various admin jobs, I fell into a marketing agency, and that's where I learned what copywriting was, and that's when I realised I wanted to be a copywriter. So maybe it was a light bulb moment, but it was on a dimmer switch. It took a while to brighten and to hit me.
And how did you land your job at the Body Shop?
Okay, I have to go back a tiny bit.
Okay.
This makes me nervous because my husband tells me I tell really long stories. I left college with no qualifications. I didn't go to university or ad school. I had to get a job. So I got a receptionist job. I did it for about a year. I got sacked, and I went to a PR agency as an office admin assistant just for a short period of time while they were working on a launch party for Michael Jackson's new album. I was there for 4 weeks. When that 4 weeks ended, the lady who ran the company asked if I would go to her husband's company to continue being an office admin assistant. And his company happened to be this marketing agency, direct marketing. So I luckily fell into the job without knowing that's where I wanted to be. I then went traveling, and when I came back, I had still no qualifications. I didn't know that copywriters needed books or you had to do an internship. I didn't know anything about getting into the advertising industry. I just thought you just applied and sent your CV and that was it. Obviously, that is not it. So I took an office admin assistant job at the Body Shop. And then when I was there, I told the lady I was working for, after a few months, I said, this isn't actually what I want to do. I really want to write stuff. How can I do that? And she gave me something to write that had come out of the Inhouse creative studio, and she really liked what I'd written and moved me straight there. So that is how I got my job at the Body Shop.
Okay, and wow, that's quite the story. But I guess with copywriting, it's something that gradually happened as you weave through your career, perhaps. But so you were at the Body Shop for 8 years. What was that experience like?
I loved it so much. I mean, obviously, you don't stay somewhere for 8 years if you don't love it. I loved it so much. There were so many things to love about it, like being female and, like, sorry to be really like stupid and stereotypical, but being female and working amongst makeup and skincare is like, it just, I could paint my nails at my desk and pretend it was for competitor research when actually I was just getting ready to go out that night. I worked with amazing people. Some of them are still my bestest friends now. I met my husband through my best friend at the Body Shop. Anita Roddick was a force. Like, how incredible is it that I am able to say that I knew her and I worked for They did innovative things that weren't being done yet. They didn't believe in anti-aging products. They obviously didn't use products which are on animals, and they didn't advertise. Their advertising was window posters in the shops. And I got to write just really nice stories about where ingredients came from and how sourcing supported women in disadvantaged communities. And it was just, there's so much to love. Plus, I've just been told my internet connection is unstable. Is that, are we good?
It's phasing out a tiny little bit, but it's not too bad.
Okay, well, stick your hand up if I need to do something while I keep talking. Also, just it should be known, because I know a lot of people sort of aren't into creative studios in-house. There was, I think, around 150 of us when we were going strong. We acted like an agency. The marketing teams who briefed us were very much treated like the client. We did pitches, we did presentations.
Oh, Vikki, you just cut out there. It's just frozen.
I don't know why I said tell me, because I don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, just carry on. It's not actually that bad. I've been to lots of like webinars and Zoom talks, which has been much worse. It's just every now and then the odd words, but you're okay.
All right, sorry everyone. I'm usually fine on these things, but yeah, so that's what I love. I loved lots about it.
Okay, and so then you left. Was that around the time they were acquired by L'Oreal? Did that change things a lot, I guess?
Yes, and yes. Even though I loved all of the things that the brand stood for, I'm not a massive activist in those areas, but L'Oreal came in and wanted to completely change the brand's ethos and purpose, and it just didn't sit right with me. Not only that, they just weren't very nice to work for.
Yeah.
So I was really miserable. It was such a change, and after 3 months of being really, really, really miserable, there is nothing worse. Well, obviously, I'm talking in the context of this conversation. There are loads of horrendous things going on right now, but it's really horrible to hate your job and have to turn up for it every day, and that's how I was feeling. And so in the end, I quit reluctantly, and yeah, it was difficult to make that decision.
And then how did you find the industry after that? Because obviously you moved to Virgin Media and then hotels.com.
So I left the Body Shop thinking, if I'm going to leave, I'm going to do something completely different. And I was offered the opportunity to cover maternity leave of the head of copy at Virgin Media, and that was very different to the Body Shop. So I went there. It was meant to be for 6 months. They extended it to 9 because it was just going really well. And it was really refreshing to write about something different. Having thought I would never want to do anything different, I actually really loved the variation in and the step change. And then when I was getting ready to leave Virgin Media, I was approached for the head of copy job at Sky. And I went there for nearly 2 years, and I loved it. And I reluctantly left because head of copy jobs, in my experience, mean more meetings and less writing. And I love writing.
Yeah.
I hate meetings, and I'm so not business minded. So sitting in meetings talking about sales forecasts and, you know, people coming to me with their sick leave or holiday leave, like, I don't know if I'm the best or the worst leader. You know, if you're sick, then please take the time off. If you want to go on holiday, take as many days as you want. I don't know why there has to be a process or forms to fill in. And I hate that whole like monitoring people's behaviour. And I know it's all based on pay and getting promotions, but it just doesn't sit right with me. So I left Sky to keep writing. I freelanced with them for about 6 months, but even though I was very secure with the work, I couldn't get my head around the fact that I didn't work every day. I've always been so hardworking. And around the time I was thinking I was going to have a nervous breakdown, I'm so dramatic. I wasn't having a nervous breakdown. I was just crying a lot. Expedia approached me with a head of copy job, and I love to travel, and it was job security, and so I jumped at it. I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but within about 6 weeks, I knew that I shouldn't have taken the job because I was back in loads of meetings. But it was great to write about something completely different again. It was great to travel. I went to Buenos Aires, Chicago, Dallas. I was very lucky. But at the same time, at the weekends, I was doing the odd freelance job for Sky. So I maintained that relationship. And in the end, I quit Expedia because it was more meetings, less copy, and Sky was continuing to offer me more copy. So I've now been working for Sky on and off for 10 years.
Wow, okay. And I know that, well, I read somewhere that when you first interviewed with Sky, it was 7 interviews in total. Was that correct?
You've done your research. I can't think where I've written that, but yes, I have said that, and it is true. They hadn't hired a head of copy before, and so I guess they wanted to make sure they were doing the right thing. So yeah, I had to meet with 7 different people who managed 7 different departments. Sky's massive. So it was a really interesting interview process. But by the time I got to the last person, who was the marketing director at the time, like chief marketing officer, it was just a chat really, and then at the end he said, have you got any questions? And I said, have I got the job? Because I just thought, after 7 interviews, surely you know now or not. Like, it just baffled me, and I was a bit tired of the whole thing. But luckily that made him laugh, and yeah, 10 years later I'm still very much working for them and loving working for them. Like I said about loving beauty, but I also love TV, and what's not to love about writing for a TV brand? Mostly TV, obviously they do loads of other things.
And is it quite difficult to secure a permanent job as a copywriter or a senior copywriter role?
I don't think it's difficult to get one. I don't think there are many of them is the issue, because too many brands and agencies think they don't need one. Copywriters are often last in, first out, because everyone thinks they can write the copy themselves. And I'm sure people listening in, if they're copywriters, or even if they're not copywriters and they work with some, they've probably heard, oh, we don't need a copywriter, or we haven't got budget for a copywriter, or we can't afford to pay for something that we can do by ourselves. And you know, obviously marketing people, they write things all the time, so they write copy, and some can write copy, but some write presentation decks and strategy documents, and that is not the same as writing a strapline, for example.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of people have spoken to me about going freelance recently, and what's the freelance / permalance lifestyle like from your experience?
It's brilliant and it's horrible at the same time. What I always say to anyone thinking of going freelance is, from my personal experience, everybody's different, obviously. I never considered going freelance. I only did it because I didn't think I had much other option for sort of job happiness. But I think it's easy to go freelance if you have worked within the industry for a certain amount of time and you've built up an address book of contacts. I think going freelance from the off on your own, maybe, you know, as a student out of uni or ad school, I think you have to rely on lots of different factors to help you get work. Whereas if you know people, you know, often our job is through word of mouth, and so it's easy to make those connections and get those jobs. I realise I'm not selling the business of a recruitment agent as like you are right now, but then it's also about having a great relationship with your recruitment agent. The person that contacted me for the Sky job was an amazing recruitment agent. I mean, I couldn't have been more prepared for the interviews, the 7 interviews. The life of a freelancer is it's great for so many things. It's great for personal time. It's great for your mind. I should elaborate rather than just list. Personal time. It's really nice to, without sounding like a middle-aged housewife, it's really nice to just write a bit of copy and then go and put the washing on, and then get back to work again, rather than saving all your chores for the weekend and not feeling like you've got any free time. It's also nice to remove that idea that I'm a middle-aged housewife, which I'm not, clearly. It's nice to write a bit of copy and then go and watch a bit of TV maybe, and then get back to it. So everything's kind of on your terms. It's good for your mind. I find waking up without an alarm sometimes, and that whole like throwing yourself out of bed, throwing yourself onto the tube, got to get into work for a certain time, got to be ready for a meeting for a certain time. It's just a bit more relaxed. And if you're not feeling it one day, that's okay. You can just approach your work when you're ready, when you're mentally ready. The worst bits of it for me, I mean, I'm not business minded at all. So setting up a company, chasing invoices. I mean, I can't tell you, if you follow me on Twitter, I bang on about it all the time. I can't stand chasing to be paid for the work that you have done. I do not understand how someone can accept work from you and then not pay you for it. Like, fuck that. It's really not difficult to process an invoice. Anyway, I won't get around to. I mean, I can, but I won't. And just like waiting to find out if you've got a job, waiting to find out if you've done a good job, waiting to get paid. All of those things can cause much anxiety, and that is horrible. And I think while there's lots of space to look after your mental health as a freelancer, there's also a lot to affect your mental health. And so be strong and be ready for that if that's your path. Did that answer the original question?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it covered all the goods and the bads. And I think invoice chasing, obviously, it's something that I experience myself. And one thing I always say is a heads up is just, I always call a week before my invoice is due, and I speak to whoever's head of accounts, and I'll just say, am I being included in this run? And I know it just seems one of those really like simple things, but I'll be on it then. And then, because otherwise they fob you off, they make up an excuse. And sometimes the director that you invoice hasn't even sent it on to accounts.
Yes.
If they're busy, it's not in their best interest to worry about invoices. So they almost expect you to chase. Refined. It's like a mini battle.
What you said is a really great tip, and I'm actually going to use it myself, because as soon as you contact someone and say, when it's late, when payment's late, they say, oh, sorry, we'll put you into the next run. So you could be waiting another month. So your tactic is much better than mine, which is sending emails with capital letters in it.
Yeah, just check the week before and say, I just want to make sure you've got it and that the code's right as well, because sometimes they need to align it with their own purchasing order systems, etc., and it just cuts all of that waiting time out, especially as a freelancer, when you are relying on that money. So what advice would you give to any juniors starting out in the industry?
Work hard. I talk to a lot of juniors. I mentor a lot of young creative women, and there's two camps. One is the one that wants to know how to succeed overnight, and the other is the one that wants to do what it takes. And unfortunately, it's the ones that want to do what it takes that get ahead. And that shouldn't be something that puts you off trying to get into the industry, because how fun is our job? Like, I'm just making stuff up all day. So why wouldn't you want to put everything that you can into that? There are worse jobs to have. So if I say work hard, I mean work hard at having fun with the work. If someone says you've got great ideas in your book, but push them, that's exciting and encouraging. So I think work hard, be interesting, like have a say, have an opinion, have a view, like know what you're looking for and what you want to do, but also be interested. So if you're cold calling an agency that you want to work for, which I highly recommend, like why not? If you don't ask, you don't get. I always say, email a head of copy, email a creative director and tell them that you would like to work for them, but tell them why. Don't just send like a blanket email, a blanket email that you would send to anyone, like, my name's Vikki, I want to be a copywriter. So what? Tell them why you want to be a copywriter, why you specifically want to write for them and for their agency. Like, is it a brand that they've got as an account that you want to work on? Have you done something for that brand already? Have you got an idea that you want to share? Make it a conversation. That's another important thing. When you go for job interviews, you're not being interviewed solely. You're also interviewing the person who's going to hire you. You need to know if they're going to be right for you just as much as they need to know if you're going to be right for them. Yeah.
And I think a real common thing that's been coming up is grit and resilience. Every single person that I've interviewed in this series, it is like an industry leader. It will be things haven't worked out, there's been knockbacks. Everyone has a story, and it is that kind of hanging on in there. And that important thing you said about juniors, one bit of advice I always give is you need to reference a company you're applying to, and definitely make sure you're not putting the wrong name on. Like, for instance, when Vinny from Bulletproof was speaking to me last week, he said the amount of emails they may get from another agency, like, I really want to work for Design Bridge, and they're like, well, hang on a minute, you're applying to us.
You are out. And also spell names and agency names right. It's amazing how I don't actually care. People spell my name wrong all the time. Like, it all sounds the same. I really don't care. But if you're applying for a job as a copywriter, I really want to know that you can spell, especially if you're referencing a brand or an agency name. Like, don't get those wrong. It's impossible to get those wrong. They're on the internet. They're everywhere.
Yeah. And that kind of standout thing, when someone is applying, it's 50% all about you and your skills and 50% about why you want to work for the company. And that's essential, whatever level, junior, middleweight, senior. And I cannot stress that enough to people. I've even put an ad out myself for somebody, and in it I've clearly said, please give me evidence you've looked at my socials. And the amount of people that just send through their CV and folio, talk all about themselves, and it's like, you've not paid attention to the job. So that's something I'd always like to really stress.
I do get that. I agree with you. I have a similar thing. Since this lockdown, I've been sharing as many jobs as I can find on LinkedIn, and a number of people contact me applying for it thinking I'm hiring for that role, and that just shows me that you haven't read the post properly. Like, I've clearly said so-and-so is hiring. What was I going to say? What did you say?
About reading the job description before applying, and if there's any steps in it. And then you said you post people's jobs.
Yeah, so if you're not paying attention. Oh no, I was going to say, but I do get that people are desperately looking for work at the moment. A lot of people are in a horrible situation, and I totally get that you might just see something, apply really quickly because you're applying for loads of other things and you're just really hopeful. And like I say, I get that, but everyone's got 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes, just take a deep breath. Like, you're not going to send a good application if you're panicking and feeling the strain. Just remember what's good about yourself and put that forward. And good luck if you're listening now and you are looking for a job. There are jobs out there.
Yeah, well, actually, a little cheeky plug from my end. I'm looking for a few copywriters at the moment. Yes. So before I got on this call, I was approached about some freelance work. So feel free to add me on LinkedIn or send me an email as well. I'll put it in the chat box in a bit. But yeah, I'm looking for copywriters. Yay, which is nice. I got a couple of messages through this morning, so it's nice to see that it's starting to shift a bit in the market at the moment.
There is work out there. There are jobs going. Obviously, there are a lot of people applying, but not everyone's going to get that job. So just apply. You never know. Also on that grit and resilience thing, I think, is it John Hegarty? He says creativity isn't an occupation, it's a preoccupation. So on that whole hard work thing, like, it's not even that hard really, the work, because if you're trying to think of ideas, well, you can't stop your mind is always thinking of ideas. So even when it doesn't feel like you're working, you still are working, because it's a preoccupation. So let your subconscious do some of the work too.
Yeah, definitely. So I first heard about you, Vikki, from these hilarious hashtags about things you overhear in agencies, and I remember seeing those and just laughing to myself. And then I saw about agency quotes, but I've noticed it's not something you mention as much nowadays. Do you mind if I ask why?
So I created the hashtag things you hear in agencies, and I don't know if anyone listening or watching knows it, but it's where the industry tweet the things that they hear in agencies, because we do say really funny things at work that you would just not make sense of if you didn't know anything about advertising or creativity. And it blew up, and it was really popular, and it was really fun. And because it was so popular, it got lots of people's attention, including somebody who approached me telling me I should make it a bigger thing. And I hadn't thought about that before. I pretty much only know how to work a Word document, to be honest, so it hadn't occurred to me to make a new Twitter account for the things that I was already tweeting. But it was a good idea, and we created agency quotes, and it's got like tens of thousands of followers, and we made 2 books out of all the tweets, and yeah, it was great. I loved it. Unfortunately, the person I'm talking about was involved in an incident that I could not justify supporting or being connected to. I wasn't connected to this other thing, but by being connected to him, it could have been mistaken for that. And so I said we had to part ways, and that I would take ownership of agency quotes because it was my idea. And he said no. He wanted us to continue sharing it, and in my upset and frustration at the time, and my willingness to remove myself from a situation I could have potentially found myself in, I agreed, and I regret that, because it was my idea and it's now being promoted as his, and as if I was never involved in it. But hey, there are bigger things going on, and I'm bigger than a Twitter account. But I guess the moral of the story is be careful who you go into business with. I know it was a Twitter account, it wasn't really business, but be careful who you partner up with, I guess. I treat everyone as a friend, and that's not right, because business isn't about friendships, it's about business. Of course, you make friends and have friends within business, but just be careful what you sign up to and agree to, and maybe have things in writing should the worst happen. I guess, you know, we are an industry built on pairing up, and how do you know that you pair up with the right person if you've never met them before, which is what I did, and I just did it out of trust, and I guess that was foolish. Sad.
No, but you know, it can happen, because I've got my own story as well about a trust of a business relationship I went into, that where I got stung myself, and it can happen, and it's a shame, because I've always enjoyed working with you, Vikki. Most people I've worked with or collaborated with, it's been a mutual respect, and it's been awesome, and we've created great things, and it's all been very positive. Every now and then there's the odd person out there that isn't quite like that and doesn't uphold those same values, and they may do something like they did that conflicts with your own, and then they're not right to work with anymore. So it can happen. It just, I think for me personally, I've learned to be lovelier to the people that need someone to be lovely and kind to them, but actually detect red flags a lot sooner and put up a bit more of a guard. And that's how I've addressed it, really, is any slight red flag. You can't always see them straight away, can you? But Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a really good point. I think I could see the red flags. There were incidents prior to the one that made me snap, and I just stupidly or naively thought, well, that's his other initiative. It's got nothing to do with agency quotes or me, so I'm safe. But as the incidents continued, I just couldn't be a part of those. But I should have parted ways earlier, and maybe with a bigger conversation, rather than getting to a point where I had to react in haste and do what I thought was the right thing at the time. And like I say, I regret it now. I should have held on to something that was mine. But it's done. I've learned from it.
And so moving on to Twitter followers. So how did you build up your Twitter following? Was it a gradual thing, or was it just,
honestly, I don't know what everyone finds so interesting. I only talk about copywriting or things related. What was that? Oh, Nikki, I think she's on mute. She said she was having fire alarm problems.
Yeah, I was saying to Vikki earlier that we were having issues this morning, and we replaced all the batteries, and it seems to be fine.
Good.
I think we're okay. Sorry, Vikki, to cut you. Sorry, everyone.
I think I guess working for myself, I have a certain level of freedom in sharing my opinions. So, where I might complain about a client, I'd never name anybody, but I might complain about a client, or I might complain about not being paid on time. Others might not feel that they can say those things because there are various reasons, obviously. But I think because, look, I don't know, I'm not a social media expert, but I think because my feed, what you're going to get with me. I'm only going to talk about copywriting, and if that's what you're here for, then I guess that's what you like to follow me for. Like, you'll never see me tweet that I had a burger, or it's very work related. My personal life is my personal life, or unless I make fun of my husband, which sometimes I do on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I've seen that's funny. I think like one time I saw a post about you liking the adverts and him not, but that's all related to copy and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think the smoke alarms are fine now, by the way. These are like the joys of working from home, all the things we have to deal with. It's the reality of it, really. But so also you do a lot of mentoring in the industry. Could you talk to us a bit more about that?
Yeah, that wasn't something I set out to do. I never put myself in a position where I thought I'm going to tell people what to do. But I had so many people come to me asking to support them or give them advice, and it kind of aligned with my experience as a copywriter throughout my career, and that is that you can be the only copywriter in an agency. You could be a copywriter without a head of copy. You could be a copywriter that isn't valued, or the craft isn't valued, and it's forever a struggle. We're always fighting for copy to be respected. And so because of those personal experiences and people coming to me with those experiences too, I felt like I could sort of see people through issues that they might come up against, like how do I present copy, how can I stop the client changing the copy, I disagree with the client, how do I approach the situation, and I think if you don't have somebody to look up to at work, then you should find somebody outside. Or maybe even if you do have somebody who can support you and develop you at work, still get somebody from outside. I think this is quite a collaborative industry, in that we are all willing to help each other and support each other. And more senior people have been through the stuff that the junior people have been through, so can definitely offer some advice on the journey. I just said journey.
I think that's a very good point, actually, that I hadn't thought about. Is sometimes in some roles, you may be the only copywriter for certain agencies, and you do need a support network of people that really have your back, especially if you're justifying why a company does need a copywriter as well, when you've got people in marketing saying, oh, we can write the copy, it's fine.
Yeah. Or even if you're the only copywriter and everyone thinks copy is brilliant and they value and respect everything that you do, you might still want another copywriter to talk to, just to have, you know, like, oh, I don't know, just to have a bit of copywriting banter with. A couple of weeks ago, I phoned up a copywriter friend, because obviously I work on my own, just to say, so the client feedback was alliteration. They think alliteration is a tone of voice principle, and, you know, only another copywriter would find that funny. So yeah, sometimes it's just to have, like, you know, a little gang.
I must say that did go over my head a little bit. So did you have like, yeah, great.
Hopefully somebody on the or listening would have thought, oh God.
They'd be chuckling to themselves. But and so have you seen that the industry's been affected much, your side, from COVID?
Yes, but in good and bad ways, almost in equal measure from where I'm sitting. So on the one hand, there was a complete, you know, breakdown and at the beginning, and no one knew what was going to happen and how long it was going to be for and what we were going to do, and jobs were almost cut instantly without looking ahead. But then, you know, obviously clients were pulling their accounts, so people had to react quickly. I mean, I myself thought I'd gone into early retirement in the first 2 weeks. I was quite enjoying it, really, although I think I might have gone a bit mad if it had lasted any longer, because I like to work and I need to earn money. My husband isn't working, so I just negated that whole housewife thing that I said earlier. He's the house husband. So there was that, but then very quickly it seemed like everyone just got going again, and, you know, put out ads that talked to the situation. Jobs were coming back up. Like, I've seen so many social media jobs going, because obviously brands are trying to talk to their customers through social, you know, in lieu of advertising or having like an outdoor campaign that people aren't going to see. I think we're also all getting a bit sick of those Zoom, or not just Zoom, I don't need to brand it, but the video conference style adverts that have gone out. I think everyone's got those out of their system. So we just seem to keep moving into different phases of creativity and productivity. And like we said earlier, the job market's picking up. I mean, it has happened really quickly. Obviously, there's going to be a long way to go for some people, and you know, it's not easy, but you have to be patient. There will be jobs. The world isn't ending. It's just, I mean, it looks like it from over the weekend, but the world will keep turning. People will keep buying. People will keep needing products, and people will keep needing messaging. And so there will always be something for copywriters to write.
I've found, if anything, content and copywriting has been one of the more consistent industries throughout this, actually, where, as you say, brands are wanting people to speak to their consumers and customers, and are actually leaning on people in that area to help them, really, with their messaging, because it is so important. They just can't get it wrong at the moment, can they?
I mean, some are, but yeah.
No, they are. Oh, good. Yeah, they really are.
Some are doing it brilliantly. Like, I shouldn't jump to the negative. Some are doing it brilliantly. Like Nike at the beginning, you know, there was something like, you're playing the biggest game of your life, or for your life, stay at home. That felt like an ad that they would have run on any other week. So the fact that it related to the times was just really smart. Durex also, they're saying things like, we've been protecting people since 1929. So they haven't even changed their message. They're still saying the same thing, but it just is amazingly and serendipitously, is that the word? I shouldn't ask, should I? I should know. It still works for the time. So that's when brands get it right, when they still look like them, even in a time of crisis. I think when brands panic and look and sound and act differently, it shows, and customers don't buy into you to change your message and your personality on any day. They buy into you because of what you said you believed in at the start, and so if you're consistent with that, you'll still have your fans.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, definitely. People don't like to see big like character changes in brands, do they? They think, oh, hang on, what's that all about?
So we're in a really like negative time, and you don't need a fun brand to suddenly get really negative to show that they acknowledge the times. Like, just be the brand that we know and love, like Nando's, for example. I can't remember their line, but they stayed cheeky. They didn't suddenly go from being really cheeky Nando's to serious voice in these unprecedented times. You know, life is uncertain. You don't need Nando's to tell you life is uncertain. You've got, you know, the news to tell you all of that horrible stuff.
Well, it was like when it was the lockdown, and the chart that Boris used looked like the Nando's spice chart, and that then suddenly started whizzing all around. Obviously Nando's didn't put that out, but other people did, and
Boris needs a creative agency, although I don't know who would work for him, but yeah, let's not get political.
Yeah, exactly. So you've always seemed to work more client side. Have you ever wanted to work agency side?
I've always wanted to work agency side. I guess because I didn't know what it took to get into agencies, and had to take any jobs that were going, that determined my path. I've been lucky through Sky, because Sky works with over 20 different creative and ad agencies, to go into agencies and work alongside them on whatever they're working with, and to support them with copy and tone of voice. But yeah, I'm still waiting for the call for an agency to say, we'd like you, even though you've been mostly in-house, which, yeah, people don't like to do the switch, but yeah, I would still love to work. I mean, my career's not over, hopefully. So yes, if there are any agencies watching, yeah.
It is that kind of in-house versus agency thing. You see it all the time. Even in recruitment, actually, you've got your recruiters that work agency side versus in-house. That's very different. But so how do you predict the new normal everyone keeps saying is going to be like?
Can I just go back to the in-house thing really quickly?
Yeah, of course you can.
Everyone says it's different. It is different, but it's only slightly different. And if you're good at your job, like if you're a copywriter, like writing copy in an in-house agency, I will call it that, because the in-house places I've worked are set up as agencies. If you're writing copy for an in-house agency, you're not going to write different copy or write it differently in a standalone agency. So the whole thing baffles me. But anyway, the new normal. Oh, I don't know. What was the rest of your question? Because I did interrupt asking to go back.
No, I'm glad that you kind of came back and defended the whole in-house versus agency thing. Do you think that what's better for a brand? Do you think it's that whole collaboration between in-house and agency working together is more successful, or just building a team in-house on the client side, perhaps?
Sorry to be woolly, but I think it depends.
No.
So, for example, the Body Shop Creative Studio, I don't know what it's like now, this was, over 10 years ago, but it was quick. So even though we had the pictures and the briefings and the client presentations built into the process, it was quick, and it was fluid, and it was collaborative, and it was easy, and it was warm, and it was lovely. In Sky Creative Agency, for example, it's huge. Sky is huge, so we need those processes. It takes longer. I think everywhere is different. The Virgin Media Creative Studio, I think when I was there was only 5 or 6 of us. So of course there was a process, but you just went over to someone's desk and started talking to them if you needed to. Whereas in a standalone agency, I guess you are, because your client is external and you have to arrange to go and see each other, you have to have a process in place to build in all those check-ins and reviews and meetings.
Yeah, okay. So, right, the new normal, and this is something that I've been asking every single person that I've been speaking to is predictions, because I've also been speaking to a lot of people that have been through certain number of like recessions, and the whole, oh, it's been a sharp drop, does that mean it's going to be a sharp bounce back, etc. But also the fact that in this downtime, things like working from home, where agencies were fighting it before, all of a sudden people are working from home, so companies have had to bend to that suddenly. So yeah, the new normal, it is very broad, but I just wondered, from your experience, do you think it's going to change anything? As you said, it's been, yeah.
Again, it depends. I think it will change a lot. I think a lot of people will revert back to safety as soon as they can, just because that's what they know. But I also think that anyone who doesn't embrace the fact that we have managed to get along this far, you know, it's been ages, working from home, still being productive, I think anyone that ignores that is just foolish, because they could lose out on creative talent. There are just no excuses now for not hiring from different communities or even different countries. Everything can be done online. Yes, it's nice to hang out with each other, and sometimes creative ideas come easier when you're bouncing off other people, and the video kind of disrupts that a little bit. But there are just no barriers to any possibilities and any ways of working. No one has a good idea sat at a desk in front of a computer anyway. It's always when you go for a walk, or you go to the, or when you take a day to work from home. Like, it's just I think this is really exciting. Obviously, the initial bits are scary, but the potential, the long-term potential for ways of working and people being happy and healthy in their jobs is incredible. I'm very optimistic.
Okay, that's good to know. I am as well, actually. It's been a challenging time to navigate, but especially at the moment, there seems to be a few more positive conversations going on, and just showing companies that people can be responsible adults and work from home, and they're not just going to be in the garden sunning themselves all day, not doing work that needs to be done. And it's been quite interesting, the companies that have furloughed staff and the companies that haven't, that are actually winning more work, because their competitors, you try and call them up and it's just a dialing tone and it rings off. So the companies that have kept going are actually, seems to be flourishing, and some of them are even looking to hire, because they're realizing that there could be talent available to them now that wasn't beforehand. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So sorry, Vikki,
and you
cut out
about people wanting. Can you? Are we good?
Just for a second there. It's been really good throughout, and then it went a little bit funny towards the end.
This is a bad time for it to drop out, when I'm saying that, you know, everyone can work remotely and successfully. I was just going to say, on your, when you said about you don't need to worry about people working from home and sitting in the garden, people, Rory Sutherland says, people who work from home are so worried that they might get caught out not working from home, that productivity is actually higher than it is when you're in the office.
Yeah, exactly. And think of all the extra time people have when they're not commuting. Think of the meetings when I've, like, halfway through my day, gotten on a tube, gone over to the other end of London, met with somebody, jumped on the tube back, and it's all, it's not disrupted anymore. So it's just a flow through your day.
But say with a creative flow, if I can get up at 5 a.m. and work from home happily through till lunch, feeling very like free and creative. But if an alarm wakes me up, I'm instantly pissed off. Then I've got to get ready, I've got to get out, I've got to make the train, I've got to get in. By the time I've done all of those things, I kind of need to recover. I don't then have a brilliant idea waiting to come out, because I'm in an enclosure where I'm expected to have one. So yay for remote freedom.
Yeah, it takes time to settle in. You don't just waltz into the office and ideas just pour out of you. You've got to set up the computer and get a coffee and settle into it. But right, should we get on to the Q&A part now?
Only if they're easy questions.
Right, let's see what we've got. I haven't checked them yet. Okay, so first one is, when working with brands on tone of voice, how do you differentiate, sorry, I can't pronounce that, if at all, between the tone and personality?
The personality is a description of your character, and the tone of voice is how you express that character. So if your character is warm and friendly, to be really basic, your tone of voice might be conversational and easygoing. Did I say that? Yeah. So the principles, what you call the principles, should complement each other. I really love it actually when a brand has the same principles for the personality and the tone of voice. They're just described in different ways. I think it's important to always have the same language running throughout. The minute you have loads of adjectives to describe a brand and its personality and its tone of voice, everything's left to interpretation and no one knows who they are or what they should do or say.
Mm-hmm. And so moving on to the next question, your brand is amazing. Can you please talk about branding yourself, your process of self-branding, and how you use that to build your client base?
Oh my goodness. I think there was a compliment in there. Thank you. This is not a premeditated thing. This is just me. I have the energy to pretend or create a personal brand. Like, what you see is what you get. So I guess that's the easiest way to have a personal brand, is just to be who you are.
Yeah, and not to be to hold back. I've just started on Twitter myself, and I'm aware that I don't really know the rules, or I'm too hesitant and things like that. But it seems with you, Vikki, you just post whatever comes up in your mind at the time that's related to copy, and that's just what you do, and people have warmed to that about you. And was it instantly you got lots of followers, or was it just a gradual thing that built up, and then once you hit a certain mark, more and more people started following you?
I can't remember at the beginning what happened, because again, that wasn't a premeditated thing. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I was talking to no one as far as I was concerned, and I wasn't doing it. I guess that's the other thing. I wasn't doing it for other people. I was just doing it for me. It was somewhere that I wanted to express myself. This year in particular, I have noticed that I get like 100 new followers every week, and I do say to my husband, what, I don't understand, like I don't know what it is. Like I said, none of this was planned. I'm just being me, and that actually sounds like I've curated that, but I honestly haven't. Anyone that knows me, Nikki, we've met a few times, so yeah. What you see is what you get.
Well, I remember how I first met you was at the Mellor and Smith talk, and I just thought it was hilarious, because when you started talking, and then your husband caught your eye and you said, oh, sorry, and then you had a sip of wine or something. I just thought, she's brilliant, and it's because you're very just you, and people know that. And I think that's another thing, like you say, with brands, is being who you are and being consistent, and people can see through if someone's being fake or things like that. But
yeah, so it sounds like I bring my husband into everything. At the Mellor and Smith talk, I was he hadn't been to anything before that I'd done, and he sat in the front row, so I was busy making jokes, and he just caught my eye because laughing, and I never make him laugh, so it really threw me, which is why I was then like, oh yeah, I just make everything just easy. I hate formality. I hate, if I am doing a talk, I hate appearing like someone of authority. I just want to have a chat with everyone, and that's I approach everything.
Yeah. Sorry, you just
a
little bit there. Okay, we're at the end.
Oh, sorry, Nikki.
No, don't worry. Again, these things happen. This is what working from home's like. Yeah. So shall we try another one?
Yes.
Yeah. So, what's your favourite brand based on their tone and how they talk to their customers?
I hate questions like this because I should have an answer. It's like being asked what's your favourite advert, and I don't know that either. What's my favourite brand? Ask me the next question, I'll think about it, because I said your mind is always working even when you don't think it is. I'll see if I can come up with something.
Oh, right, okay. Well, this is another favourite one. So, what's your favourite copy you've ever made, and how was the process?
So my own copy. Okay, this is good. This isn't going to sound grand enough, but at the Body Shop, I went through a phase of saying the cat. This is showing my age. Of saying the catchphrase from Cannon and Ball, "Rock on, Tommy." I mean, I drove everyone mad. Anytime anyone spoke to me, I would say, "Rock on, Tommy." And then I got a brief for a new deodorant that used volcanic rock as an ingredient, and I was like, I mean, I've got this. So the headline was "Freshness that Rocks," and I was really pleased with myself on that. Not a big story there. I guess another line I'm proud of, for a series on Sky Atlantic with Tim Roth called Tin Star, and I'm trying not to give spoilers in case anyone wants to watch it, but he has a drug and alcohol problem, and he's also out for revenge. So the line was, "Can you hear me?" Oh, we've frozen
I
again.
can. It's kind of frozen, but I can hear you still.
Oh.
I think. Hey, Vicky. Is it stabilised?
No, if I'm happy to answer questions after this, if you want to send them to me, I honestly, I don't mind. You can email me, tweet me, I will answer questions.
Yeah, if everyone's still in the chat, but it's just going to be difficult, isn't it, if it cuts out?
Yeah, I'm really sorry. Let me just, yeah.
Oh, some people have said it's all good here, so I think people want us to carry on. So if they're still tuned in, do you want to still keep going, or should we try and wrap
I'm
it
happy
up?
to keep going. I mean, it's annoying for people, but if it's okay, yeah,
I
we can
think,
keep going
yeah,
for a few more minutes.
people are saying in the chat box, so I'll just answer two more questions. So what's the next one? So this one's on mental health.
I
So
thought of a favourite brand.
yeah, okay.
Luke's City Guides. They look like they have fun when they write about holiday destinations.
Luke's City Guides.
Luxe. Maybe not a favourite, but it's what you're getting for now.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Mental health.
So I'm curious about what the most healthy creatives teams you've been a part of. What sort of things the team does to cultivate a safe environment for creativity from like a psychological point of view?
I unfortunately don't have a personal experience of that situation.
Yeah, okay. And how do you stop creative block?
I leave the computer. It's so that is it. It is that easy. Just step away. It can be to put the washing machine on, like I said before. It could be to walk down the street. The minute I look up and or talk to somebody or flick through a magazine, something comes. So you just got to distract yourself.
Like that question, and then it allows your mind to process the one before. But so last question, when approached to write copy for an industry or sector you have limited knowledge on, how do you begin to research, write?
I just get as much information as possible. So, I mean, the internet's amazing. Everything is there. So don't just read the brand's website, but read its competitors' websites, read its Twitter feed, see what customers are saying back to the brand. And this is all obviously in lockdown situation. When you can get out, if it's a shop, go to the shop. read magazines on the subject. If you can't afford to buy them, just stand in the supermarket aisle and flick through them. I always do that and make notes. I was writing about, whenever I'm writing about sports, which obviously I do a lot for Sky, I don't know anything about sport, I might just go and pick up the football magazine on the shelf and just have a flick through. But just, you can't have too much information. Just keep feeding yourself with whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, you can also Google things like typical words and phrases related to football, for example, so then you know what words to use. It is that easy.
So it's just doing your research, seeing what else is out there and pulling that in. Okay, and so someone's asked about advice for pitching yourself, creating your CV and online portfolio. Do you have any tips on that at all?
Not really. If I was to do a CV now and send it to an agency, I would probably go all out and make something that stood out, so it isn't just the typical Word document or PDF. And there are creatives that do that, and they're success stories, and you see them in the industry press and you see that they get the job. So I don't know if anybody watching saw that guy who wanted to write for Sprite, and he made the rap video and sent it to Wyden and Kennedy, and they hired him. So, you know, it's a creative problem. Come up with a creative solution. You are advertising yourself to a job, so target your audience and put yourself into the idea.
Yeah, that's really good tip as well, because especially if they're a dream agency you want to work for, like, show them and go all out. I actually, last week, Naharika Samuel from Aspire joined me on a call, and we went in depth all about what makes an ideal CV within content and copywriting. So I'll be uploading that video in a week if anybody would like to watch that. She had some really good pointers. So yeah, I think I'll wrap this up now, Vikki. But again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us. And if you would like to tweet us or share it on Instagram, please do. It gets the word out there about these events.
Thanks everyone for coming and listening and or watching. I'm not even sure what's happening. And thank you very much, Nikki. Like I said, it's clear you work really hard, so good for you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, right, bye everyone. I'm going to end the session. Bye.
Bye.